In the quiet town of Cadence, where the mist-laden streets whispered secrets of ancient times, there stood a small, unremarkable restaurant on the town's edge. Henry's Diner was its name, a modest establishment with faded curtains and a flickering neon sign that rarely drew attention. It was known for its humble fare and a peculiar air of forgotten nostalgia, but little did its patrons know that it was about to become the scene of a cosmic event beyond their understanding. The restaurant's owner, Henry Jr., was a man of ordinary means and modest dreams. His establishment was a sanctuary for the few locals who frequented it, a haven of simple pleasures in a town that had long been abandoned by progress. The menu was traditional, the decor quaint, and the service, though not exemplary, was consistent. Henry took pride in maintaining a semblance of normalcy, oblivious to the ripples of otherworldly events that were about to converge upon his establishment. On a fog-drenched evening, when the mists rolled in thick and heavy, obscuring the world beyond the restaurant's windows, a figure emerged from the gloom and approached Henry's Diner. The patrons inside barely noticed the arrival, distracted by their own conversations and the warm glow of the restaurant's dim lighting. The figure was cloaked in shadow, its form obscured and indistinguishable from the darkness that surrounded it. The bell above the door jingled softly as the figure entered, drawing the eyes of the few diners. Henry, behind the counter, glanced up with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. The figure was tall and unnaturally imposing, its presence causing an inexplicable chill to seep into the room. The air grew heavy, thick with an oppressive weight that seemed to drain the warmth from the restaurant. "Welcome to Henry's Diner," Henry said with forced cheerfulness, his voice trembling slightly. "Table for one?" The figure nodded slowly, and though it had no discernible face, Henry felt the weight of its gaze as if it were penetrating his very soul. The figure took a seat in a shadowed corner, its form coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape that defied all conventional understanding. The restaurant's usual hum of conversation dwindled to an uneasy silence, broken only by the soft crackling of the heater and the muted clinking of cutlery. Henry approached with the menu, but as he neared, he felt a nauseating distortion in reality, a subtle shift that made the familiar surroundings feel alien and surreal. He placed the menu before the figure, but the shadows seemed to writhe and twist around it, the figure's presence distorting the very fabric of the restaurant. "Can I offer you anything?" Henry asked, trying to maintain his composure. The figure's response was not a voice but a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to emanate from the very air. It was a sound of cosmic vastness, a guttural hum that shook the foundation of the restaurant and sent ripples of dread through Henry's being. The hum grew louder, filling the room with an almost tangible sense of foreboding. In response to the figure's unspoken desire, Henry prepared a dish, a special offering that was more ritualistic than culinary. He chose a rare, exotic fish from the back room, its scales shimmering with an unnatural iridescence. As he prepared the dish, he felt an unsettling presence behind him, an unspoken awareness of something vast and ancient that lay beyond the veil of reality. When the meal was ready, Henry carried it to the figure's table, his hands trembling. The figure seemed to gaze at the dish with a hunger that transcended mortal comprehension. As the figure's obscured form leaned towards the food, an unearthly light filled the room, casting grotesque shadows on the walls and warping the very space around them. The dish was consumed, though the process defied all logic. The fish seemed to dissolve into an eldritch mist, absorbed into the figure's being in a manner that defied the natural laws of matter and energy. The restaurant's air grew thick and oppressive, the very essence of the place seeming to writhe and twist in response to the figure's presence. As the figure finished its meal, the shadows around it grew darker, more defined, until they seemed to merge with the figure itself. The figure rose, its form expanding and elongating, a grotesque amalgamation of shadow and substance that defied all attempts at description. The restaurant seemed to shrink under its immense presence, the very walls closing in, warping and twisting into impossible angles. With a final, resonant hum that seemed to tear at the very fabric of reality, the figure dissolved into a vortex of darkness and mist. The restaurant was left in eerie silence, the air heavy with a lingering sense of dread. The lights flickered and died, plunging the room into a cold, dark void. Henry was left standing alone in the pitch-black restaurant, his sanity teetering on the brink of collapse. The next morning, the restaurant was found deserted, its tables set as if for an ordinary day. The patrons who arrived found only an empty, abandoned shell. Henry's diner had become a place of dark legend, a haunting reminder of the cosmic forces that lurked just beyond the veil of human understanding. Cadence would never be the same. Whispers of the eldritch visitor spread through the town, mingling with the fog and shadows, leaving behind only the lingering echoes of a reality that had been irrevocably altered by the presence of an ancient and inscrutable entity.